I am going to speak to you today about the importance of nonsense. And I'm going to tell it in two stories. And it begins with a story that you all might be able to relate to, which is the story of my favorite stuffed animal. And here he is. So I walked into a store as a toddler. I toddled into the store. And I saw in front of me what became the object of my desire and my favorite stuffed animal of all time. I did not know his name. My parents said his name is Bugs Bunny. I couldn't say Bugs Bunny. I said, Bud Bunny? I walked up to him. Let me describe him to you. I walked up to him. He had an aura around him, as you can see. He had gray fur, so puffy fur on his face. This rubbery face that I still don't know why I found it appealing exactly. It's kind of grotesque. Big, shiny plastic eyes, ears that you can bend that had wires in them. But the coolest thing ever, and this is new technology then, had a ring that was attached to his side. And when you pulled the ring, it was attached to a string. And when you let go of the string, guess what? He talked. And what do you think he said to me? What's up, Doc? You might have thought that that's what he said to me. But it turns out, this Bugs Bunny delivered to me that day 5 koans. And the first one that he said to me was, "Hey, you take me with you." And I said, "Okay." And I took him and I grabbed him and I started to walk out of the store with him. And my parents said, "Scotty, you can't just walk out of the store with that." And I said, "But he said that I should." Anyway, they relented. They bought the Bugs Bunny for me. Suffice to say, it became my best pal. I carried him with me everywhere. And after about 6 months, he was very well loved. He looked like this. Turns out when you bend those ears too much, they come off. I lost the hand somewhere. I like to think about some kid finding the hand, especially the one with a carrot. And the fur started coming off in patches. And then one day, I still loved him very much, although my parents wanted to snatch him away. One day, I pulled the string, and he didn't say, "What's up, Doc?" or "Hey, take me with you." I pulled the string, and he said, "I was like, that is cool. And he did it, I pulled again. He talked gibberish all the time. So this all went along, took this all in stride. And then one fateful day, I was having a little conflict with my brother. As I recall, he was coming at me sort of like this. And as you all know, there are times, even though it is your favorite stuffed animal, you have to use it in self-defense. So I grabbed the leg of my Bugs Bunny, took a swing at my brother, missed him completely, and smashed the Bugs Bunny's eye up against the bedpost. It shattered into a million bits, leaving a big gaping hole through which I thought I could see the brains of Bugs Bunny. I started weeping, put him down on the floor, did triage. I thought, I'll pull the string, see what happens. I said, "Bugs, talk to me." And he said, I let go, and he said something like, "An eye patch for me you must make." And so I did. And this was a revelation for me because it became very popular. All the kids in the neighborhood wanted eye patches for their stuffed animals, and I was able to supply them for a small fee. So I'm here to talk a bit to you about something that I love, which is nonsense. Nonsense is part of my thinking. I love the unintended consequences of nonsense. Let me show you how this story spins out. It is no coincidence that 40 years later, I created this strange children's book called TUFF FLUFF, the case of, guess what, Duckie's missing brain. The brains, remember? Which led to my creating a book, and I love publishers for allowing me to do things like this, to create the first children's book in history to depict brain surgery. It also led me to creating a clue in this noir book that I created called Blue Jay the Pirate. Notice an eye patch again. It turns out I love birds, I love pirates, or I did when I was a kid, I still do actually. And I thought, yeah, combine those two things together. It's what we do as artists, you know. It's the Reese's peanut butter cup technique, you know, like this, put it together. And so I started going into my bird books and finding birds that were pirate-like. Blue jay, black cap, it gets more ridiculous. Robinson, sorry. Chuck Will's widow. Who named a bird Chuck Will's widow? That is such a great name and such a great pirate name. And then you find yourself going down and wanting to create some level of believability to this crazy story. So I build ships and the interiors of ships for no good reason, and weapons for no good reason. And then here's what happens. Teachers see this, the book gets published, teachers see this, and they say, you know what you've got there, Scott? You've got curriculum. And in fact, we did. And schools now use this book to teach kids how to make weapons, to teach them about, ornithology, all of that sort of stuff. And the kids really get into it. It's immersive sort of curriculum that's connected with this. And this leads into my concept of Common Core. I'm not a STEM guy, I'm not a STEAM guy, I'm a STAN guy. And let me tell you what STAN is. And I'm not being facetious here, this is true, I really do believe in this. It's science, technology, art, and nonsense. A little dose of nonsense with everything we're doing goes a long way. And I try to, when I go into schools, I see that oftentimes that we're really quickly trying to make them adults. And it's like, tell me something ridiculous. Give me something ridiculous. So I tell them, as a children's book illustrator, I often get copy like this from an author, a black cow in a green field. I say, kids, what do you see in that? And they say, I see a cow munching grass. Well, I don't see that, and you don't need to see that either. What I see is this. And this makes me very happy. If my career could end with this illustration. I love this illustration. But it wouldn't allow me to do things like this. And from this ridiculous sensibility, from this nonsense, comes some really interesting ideas. I tell them about Nickelodeon. I designed the Nickelodeon logo. Instead of creating one logo, we said, let's be childlike about this. We give you a color, orange, and you create hundreds of shapes to go along with that. I recently brought my childish nonsense into creating burn emojis. I want every one of you to download one today, please. They are at least, even if you don't support Bernie, they're very entertaining. And it's led me to create such things as a new book of classics written as nonsense verse. And yes, that is Gregor looking more like an Eric Carle character than a roach. And I want to end up with one story that's near and dear to my heart. I had the good fortune of being the illustrator of Flat Stanley. I don't know if you know Flat Stanley, but you're going to learn about him now. It's created by this fellow, Jeff Brown. I feel very privileged to have met him. Created the story about a flat kid whose bulletin board, what happens to him is while he's sleeping, the bulletin board next to his bed falls on him and squishes him to an eighth of an inch thick, all right? And I love that idea. I just thought that was the greatest idea. This is what he looked like when he went to the doctor. Poor kid. But I asked Jeff, I love asking about the genesis of stories. And I asked Jeff, how did you come up with this idea? And this is brilliant. Brilliant use of nonsense. Every night, he had a son named Duncan. He had this ritual for putting his son Duncan to bed. He would read him a story, switch off the light next to his bed, walk over to the door, switch off the overhead light, and leave the door open just a crack so it'd be sort of a night light. And he'd say, "Good night, Duncan." And Duncan would usually respond, "Good night, Daddy." Well, on this particular night, he went and closed the door and left it open just a little bit. And instead of responding, "Good night, Daddy," he heard this sort of sound. And Jeff said, "What's the matter, Duncan?" And he said, "I'm scared." He said, "What are you scared of?" "I'm scared that the bulletin board next to the bed is going to fall on me in the middle of the night." And here's the brilliance. This dad, in a moment of inspiration, didn't say, "Oh, nonsense, Duncan. I put big screws in there, it'll never fall on you," because that wouldn't satisfy you as a kid. And instead, what Jeff said was, "Well, that's interesting, Duncan. What do you think would happen if the bulletin board fell on top of you?" Duncan's eyes got really big. He said, "I don't know." And he said, "Well, you'd probably be squished to about an eighth of an inch thick." "I would?" Yeah. And then he said, "Imagine what you could do then." "What could I do?" "Well, you could slip under doors. You could fly like a kite. You could fold yourself up and mail yourself places." He started to tell a story, and you know what happened. Duncan fell fast asleep, and Jeff Brown was up half the night writing the first version of Flat Stanley. So Flat Stanley is a phenomenon that I like to be a small part of. It just makes my heart proud to be part of this. Kids make versions of Flat Stanleys, or in the best cases, versions of themselves, send them all over the world to the far reaches like Chicago. This is a really good Flat Stanley, by the way. To Africa. Flat Stanley's been above the ground. And what's really terrific about this is connecting, it's, again, creating curriculum sort of out of nonsense. Has met many celebrities. Clint really liked him. He actually took his Oscar with for $1 Million Baby with a little Flat Stanley in his pocket. I don't know if you all saw the Ben Carson one where he's holding him like sort of. Oh, that's an interesting one. Schools use this as a way of connecting kids to the larger world. I also, from an artistic perspective, particularly love the artistic sort of expression that comes out of creating Flat Stanleys, or flat versions of this themselves. That's Flat Eleanor on the left, I think. Flat Ralph in the middle. He was with us for 2 weeks last summer. And then this is my very favorite. End to end, I just wanted to leave you with the full 5 koans that Buddha Bunny gave to me, and you can ponder them. What's up, Doc? Yikes, I hurt myself. Life is suffering, of course. I like carrots. Now take it easy, and hey ya, take me with ya. That's all, folks. Thank you.